what happens when you abandon the narcissist? Like, what is going on at this point? Now, typically when we talk about abandonment, we're normally not talking about narcissism. We're normally looking at a different aspect. Let me explain really quick. So you've got inside of the cluster B categories, you've got 4 different types. You've got antisocial, you've got histrionic, you've got narcissism, and you also have borderline. Okay. Now, borderline, or we'll just write it in here to make it easy, BPD. Okay. Borderline personality disorder. Let's try it again. Borderline personality disorder. Okay. Underneath that, typically the main thing underneath is abandonment. Okay. Now, underneath abandonment is kind of like I'll term it a lot of times as being like the raging river of like, this is all of the shit that's underneath borderline that they don't want to deal with and that they don't want to work through, or that they're avoiding a lot of times. But it's this piece of abandonment of like, I have to avoid abandonment or else my worth, my value, all that kind of stuff. So don't leave me, kind of a thing. Sometimes people BPD like are perfect partners for narcissism because they're in this karmic loop, like they can't stop in one sense. But then you have NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, and the underlying piece under that, between abandonment and then NPD, is this piece of shame. Okay, now shame and shame avoidance, this is the raging river that's underneath, is this aspect of shame. Like, I want to be able to avoid shame, all different kinds of things. And this isn't like a healthy shame that they're just misinterpreting. Like, this is toxic shame, trying to beat themselves up, not knowing how to be able to process it. And like, side note, if you want to know anything more about how I process shame now, check out my podcast, Real and Raw with Ben Taylor. I walk through a whole, like, 15 minutes of how I've actually worked on rewiring shame in my life. I actually share it on here sometime, but I keep forgetting. All right, so anyways, these two, BPD, avoidant of abandonment, and NPD, avoidant of shame, oftentimes there is like this connecting river. And this connecting river between the two is this piece of rejection. Now, you're going to see this have a similar effect on both of them, but you have to understand that like narcissists hate rejection. Okay, they hate rejection. It's because this piece of like, you reject the narcissist, he's like, whoa, like, don't you understand? I'm God's gift to this green earth. How dare you actually reject me? Like, when you put up a boundary or a wall that puts him at bay, like, he's going to get pissed off. Okay, because he doesn't believe in this piece of rejection. He believes in his entitlement of, well, he's entitled to you and he's entitled to what he wants. But rejection, that's really harsh. How could you even do that? So rejection is one of these things that gets triggered and ties into this piece of abandonment. And so when you abandon a narcissist, there's this big piece of like rejection that's filling up inside the narcissist, being like, wait a second, they just rejected me. Now, the hard part with this is when you start doing this to a narcissist, what you're doing is you're rejecting his mask. So I need you to understand, like, all narcissists have a mask, okay? Like, they have a projected, like, version of themselves that's over here that is different, okay? Like, it's a different version of what's going on. There's this mask, okay? And so typically they're like, hey, like, you need to see the mask that I have. You need to believe that this is the reality of what's actually going on. The problem is it's not, okay? The problem is it's just fake. It's just false. And so when you get to the place where you're like, wait a second, I see past your mask, I see who you actually are, and you start to walk away, they're like, whoa, you're rejecting the mask. You're rejecting the version that I created. Because the narcissist created this version, okay? Like, he created this version over here that it comes across a certain way. Maybe it's that it looks good to society, okay? So he looks like a good person. Maybe it's this piece of like, oh, he's like perfect. Like, he's like the best person ever for you. Maybe it's just a piece of like, hey, this is the image that he's put out there for other people to see. And so when you actually start to move away from that, he's like, whoa, you're rejecting me. Okay, now a lot of times narcissists have this piece of like, how dare you reject me? Okay, there's a piece where like, I thought I was the best thing ever. Like, I thought the world revolved around me. So when someone left me, I had to play the victim because I was like, I don't know why they'd leave me. Well, yeah, I was abusive asshole that was a liar. But besides that, why would they leave me? Like, do you see that? Like, it would be like compartmentalized, dissociated, like pushed away. And so narcissists will do this all the time to be able to justify the fact that you're leaving him. You're abandoning him. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because the narcissist will use this to play it to his advantage. That image that he had of being a good person, of being a good guy, of looking perfect, all of a sudden gets tarnished by you leaving him. So he could own up and he could say, yeah, she left me because I cheated on her, because I was abusive, because I was an asshole to her. But he's not going to do that. He's not going to do that because that makes his image look bad. That makes the mask look like he's a bad person. So instead of confronting that, instead of dealing with the truth and exposing that truth and exposing the guilt and the shame that he feels so he actually does something and changes it, he's like, let me just go ahead and say I'm a victim, because it's easier to be a victim than it is to be accountable. And see the narcissist create a new reality, a new mask that's all focused on his image, how he looks, to be able to get other people to believe his story, to believe his version of reality. So he can either get other supply, he can bring people onto his team, he can get flying monkeys, he can triangulate against you, like he can do a smear campaign, all these different things, because now he's the victim because you abandoned him. You're going to see this in the relationship so many times where he's been saying stuff of, I don't want to be in this relationship, I just want to leave, I just want to get out, over and over and over again. And then he won't do anything. How many of you have had your narcissist say, hey, I want a divorce, and then he won't file? Type in me into the chat, because I need you to understand this happens all the time. And if you see someone else in the comment, you can be like, oh, they actually need some support because they're going through a crazy making experience where he keeps saying, I want a divorce. He keeps saying, I want out. He keeps saying this is the worst relationship ever, but he does nothing to do it. That's because he's a coward and a liar. That's the easiest way to be able to put it. He's a coward and a liar. He's not willing to actually do what's required to stand up as a man and say, this is what I want. Instead, he wants to take the easy way out, and that is make sure that he stays a victim by you leaving. You see, if he can get you to leave, then he looks like the victim because you abandoned him, because you walked away. And he'll have all these stories that he's going to put around to be able to say, oh, she left me, but I was still trying. She left me, but I was being faithful. She left me, but I apologize. It's all going to be like put in a certain light to try to make sure that he looks good and you look like the crazy one. He's going to say this to your kids of mom left us. When in reality, it was his actions that prompted you to leave to be able to get your sanity back. But he's going to try to manipulate it. He's going to do a smear campaign of trying to tell other people that it was your fault. You're going to see this over and over and over again, where the narcissist wants to become the victim because he doesn't want to look bad in ending the relationship. You're going to see this a lot of times in covert narcissists, maybe not as much in overt, but you will see this where the narcissist wants you to leave so that he can look like the guy who tried his best to the very end. He was doing the love dare. He was going to church. He was working on himself. He was going to therapy. And then you left. How dare you? That's the story he's going to sell himself, and he's going to sell other people to put him in the place of being a self-righteous victim and you being the abuser that walked away, that gave up on the relationship, gave up on the marriage because of one mistake that he made. He'll sell this version. He'll sell it really well. He's been selling this to you. He's been selling this to other people for a while now. So you need to understand that when you leave a narcissist, be prepared for everything you knew about him to flip. For everything that you consider to be like sane, for everything you consider to be at least I know this piece, expect it to flip, because he's going to flip people on you. He's going to turn the tide. He's going to try to do anything he can so that he looks like a victim and you look like the crazy person. When the narcissist gets triggered with his piece of rejection, gets triggered with his piece of abandonment, it activates his own level of shame. When that comes up, he can say, oh, I can either expose this and show the mask, show the shit that's inside, and I can deal with it, or I can run and hide, and I can make it seem like it's all your fault. He chooses that route virtually every single time because confronting his pain, confronting his past, confronting the stuff that he's done feels impossible, feels like death. So he'd rather make your life hell than he would actually own up to the shit that he's done. If any of this resonates with you and you're wondering how to get free, please go to the link in my bio. Go to rawmotivations.com/breakthrough. I want to help you get free today. We've worked on building programs and tools and community of women that are growing and empowering themselves to live to the fullest and breaking free from the toxicity mentally and emotionally so they can actually live and maximize who they are. People that have come through our programs no longer have this concern about will he come back. They no longer have this fear of what do I do if I ever see him again. They no longer have this wonder of are they going to fall into another toxic relationship, because they know who they are, they know their purpose, they know their calling, they know the direction, and they're maximizing their life in all different areas. If you want to be a part of this and a part of a community that's striving to show you that you're not alone and to raise the level of accountability of you being free and your healing, then I want you to go to rawmotivations.com/breakthrough today. You can click the link in my bio. You can go to that website. We'd love to have you a part of that and love to see how we actually help you get liberated from the mental and the emotional craziness that you've been going through. If you haven't already, hit subscribe, like, rate, review. If you're listening to the podcast, thanks so much. Give us a rating. Share this with someone that might be struggling with this topic today. Hey, just want to jump in here really quick and say you might have been watching my content for a period of time, but you haven't taken the next step. You haven't taken the next moment, the next idea, the next thought to actually change your life. And I want to provide you with a couple different options. One of the ways is to be able to work with me personally inside of the Thriver Intensive. What I do inside of there is help you break the trauma bond, eradicate the triggers, and move forward in the healing process. You got 24/7 access to me. You've got access to other women who are going through it, access to other coaches, but a support system that you need to finally break free once and for all, and to make sure that you don't go back, that you don't interact with them again, and that you finally find peace. If you're interested in knowing a little bit more about this, then click on the link down below, but it'll be rawmotivations.com/breakthrough. You'll be able to hear a little bit from me, you'll be able to hear a little bit from my wife, and be able to hear a little bit more about what I do to help you move forward. If that resonates with you, click on the link below, rawmotivations.com/breakthrough. Have you ever felt like no matter what you're trying to do, you're always the one trying to hold it all together, to keep the relationship functioning? Like you're fighting for something, but it doesn't even seem like he cares about the relationship, that he cares about you. And it oscillates back and forth. One minute he tells you that he loves you. Next minute he's pushing you away. One minute he's acting like everything's fine and the family's great. And the next time he's treating you almost like you don't even exist. You feel like you get to the place that you're the one that's the only one that's trying in the relationship. And deep down you might start to wonder, does he even want me here? Does he even love me? Does he even care? The answer really quick is just no. But it's not in the way that you think. Because I want you to understand that the truth is that there's a version of him that wants you to leave. He doesn't just want to be the one to end it, he wants to make sure you do it. He doesn't want the responsibility. He doesn't want to look like the bad guy. He doesn't want to deal with the consequences of what's going to happen if you walk away. So instead of him walking away like a normal person, he makes you do it instead. He makes sure that you are the one that he pushes away, that you are the one that he drains and slowly wears down until you can't take it anymore, so that you finally leave. And when you finally get to that place where you take the time and you leave, he flips and he plays the victim. He looks at everyone and he tells everybody in a sad face that he tried. He acts like you gave up. He rewrites the story so that somehow he's the one that got hurt because you abandoned him, you left him. And if you don't see it happening, you will walk away, blaming yourself the entire time. That's exactly what he wants. He wants to have you confused. He wants to have you lost. Today I want to break down how narcissists push you to leave and why he refuses at the end of the relationship to end it himself, and how the patterns keep you stuck in the cycle that's designed to actually destroy you long term.